Now let's fill our room with some furniture, and at first this will be some basic box modeling and some basic modeling, so let's get to it. And first I want you to add plane, and we'll need to scale this to make a table next to the window. So basically the scale is up to you. You can always check the dimensions here, and you can do something like 3.7 here and 1.6 on the Y. That's the dimensions I ended up having. So you can apply this while you're in the object mode, and then just press Ctrl A and apply scale. So that's the same stuff as if you would do it in the edit mode. Okay, and now let's go into the edit mode and let's press G, then Z, something like 1.4, 1.5. Now let's extrude this, so press E and extrude it a little bit up. Right now just tab out and we'll move the table closer to window, and I want to do this in the object mode, so the pivot stays in the center here, and I will show you later why I want the pivot point at the floor level, and that's why we moved the plane up in the edit mode. So yeah, just press G, then Y, and move this closer to window. And right now we'll make the legs for the table, so let's press Shift S and snap the cursor to select it, to have it down here, and we'll just press Shift A and create a circle, and go here and modify the sides to 12. Right now we can go to the edit mode, vertex select, so we better see the vertices there, and press numpad 7 for the top view, go to the wireframe mode, and let's scale this down something like this to make a leg for the table, and press G and move this to corner. And right now just add mirror modifier, and we'll check additionally the Y-axis. So we now have 4 circles there, and we can press F to fill this with face, go to the front view and extrude. And that's basically the legs for the table. We can now name and parent these objects, so select the table and give the name table, and this one we can call table X, and just parent them to the table object. So Ctrl P and object keep transform. And right now about that origin point, if you have an object like this where the parent object has pivot point at the floor level, and you just parent anything to it, everything is scaled according to this pivot point of the parent object. So if you press S, you can change the scale of the table very easily with maintaining the floor level. So if you look from the front, you can see the table stays on the floor, and this is very useful for positioning objects in architectural scenes like this. So we don't have to worry too much about the scale of the objects, just make every object like this, and then you can easily move them around the room and scale them however you want. So, and there's one last thing we want to do for the table, and that's give it some drawers, so it has a little nice detail. So let's move the cursor by holding Shift and right clicking somewhere here. And again, nothing too precise, we'll modify it later. So press Shift A, add a plane. Right now go to the edit mode by pressing Tab R to rotate, then X 90 degrees. And if you go to the front view and change to the wireframe view, you can scale this down like this, and then press S and X to scale it on the X-axis. Okay, so this will be our drawer, and right now we can just add the array modifier, and let's change the offset to 1.1. That's too much, so let's change this to 1.0 025, I think. Yeah, that's cool. And adjust the count. And right now you can see we are off the table here, so just press X and scale this down. But beware, here the distance is changing too, so you want to tab out eventually and move this a little bit. And I think a little bit of additional scale here will be enough, something like this, and move it in place. So maybe on the Z-axis as well, right, and move it up a little bit. Okay, so nothing too crazy here, and we can go back to the edit mode, press E and extrude this and add some bevel, so Ctrl B and bevel. And right now press Shift S and cursor to select it again because we moved it around. And let's press Shift A, add mesh and round cube. And if you don't have the round cube option here, you can go to the preferences and enable the extra objects add-on, which we enabled for the single word and other things. So that's pretty straightforward. So let's add a round cube, and I will explain later why round cube is a better option here basically. But right now just edit and scale this down to create a knobs or handles, tab out and move this, press G, Y and move this outside a little bit. Right now we can go to the front view, shift click the drawers, press Ctrl P to make the parent, object keep transform, and now click just the handle, press Alt D and then X and move it here. Don't have to be too precise, but the important thing, we parented the object before we duplicated it, so this new object is parented to the drawers as well. So that's few steps less we would have to make right now. And right now just select the drawers, table and Ctrl P and make parent. And if you want to tidy up the scene, you can always go here and rename it to drawers, and we can leave the round cube as is. Don't need to go so deep into the hierarchy of the objects. And yeah, that's the table for you. And right now we'll make some shelves. Okay, I want these shelves to be somewhere here on the wall. So let's move the cursor to about 3/4 of the length of the wall right here, and we'll just adjust the position of this 3D cursor so it's on the floor again. So let's go to the view, find the 3D cursor and modify the location to 0 like this. And right now we can add a plane. Go to the edit mode and press G, X and 1 to move it so it touches the wall there. Right now we can just modify the depth of the shelf by going to the edge select, clicking the edge here, pressing G twice, you already know this, and pushing this further down. And now we can select all and scale this on the Y to make it a little bit longer. Something like this. Yeah, it's around 3 meters on the Y, so that's okay. And right now we can go into the edit mode again and press G, then Z and move it up somewhere to the middle of the window basically, and then just extrude, and there's your shelf. Right now you can tab out. Let's name these shelves. And one last thing, we'll add the array modifier, so let's add array and let's keep the relative offset there, but modify X to 0 and Z to 6 or something like that. You can play with that, basically how high shelf you want to be, and the count is 2. Now again, the pivot point is all the way down here, it's on the wall, so it's aligned with this side of the shelves. So if you want to scale the shelves, you can just use the S. They will just stay on the wall perfectly, and you can move them around. So that's pretty useful if you want to make adjustments. So if you want to move shelves somewhere, just pressing G, Y, scaling, then modifying, and you have completely different set of shelves. Okay, let's go back. And right now, one last thing, I want some stereo set table down here, and basically that's another just a box shaped furniture, so it'll be pretty easy to make. Let's move the cursor somewhere around here, or maybe here. Okay, now we'll adjust that later, and just press Shift A, add a plane again, and this will be very similar to the table workflow. So let's just scale this, and I want this to be something like 1 on the X here. That's why I'm scaling the object mode, so I can see here, and something like 4 on the Y. Okay, that's cool. And right now just press Ctrl A and apply the scale. So the scale is 111 here, and go to the edit mode, move this up a little bit, something like this, 0.25, and extrude a little bit. Okay, we can tab out and we can call this stereo table. I want the record player and the speakers to be here later, and with the cursor still in place, we can press Shift A, add another plane, go to the top view, wireframe mode by holding Z, go to the edit mode, scale it down, and move to the corner. And as you probably guessed, we'll now add the mirror modifier, so let's add that, enable Y, and we can extrude this, so press E and extrude it up, okay, like this. And we can call this stereo table X and parent it here, so Ctrl P, like that. Okay, and right now again the pivot point is down there, so it's very easy to adjust the scale. Okay, I think the position of this is quite alright here. So basically this is all the basic boxy furniture from the scene, and we can now move on and dig a little bit deeper to that hard surface modeling. So let's move on.